Well, before I fizzle out totally, why don't we do the questions that other people submitted?
Oh, sure.
Because I think those will be a little more attractive to viewers.
Okay. Let's see.
Because I don't know if I have answers to the co-host questions. We might just be, you might ask, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend to know something I don't.
It's funny because some of these are just so irrelevant. It's like, ask me questions to ask PsychedSubstance, and then this guy's like, holy shit. Like you're collabing with him. Working out on Molly.
Have not done it. Will not do it. Terrible idea. It raises your resting heart rate, and that would be dangerous.
What would happen if you mixed DMT with pre-workout?
I have very little experience with pre-workout. Derek is going to have to assist me in this regard and give me some of his fantastic formulated pre-workout to use.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I'll start like featuring it in videos. Like before I start this video, here we'll have some gorilla. Is that what Gorilla Mind?
Yeah.
Gorilla Mind pre-workout.
Yeah.
All right.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I imagine this would not be the best combo, obviously, but none of us have practical experience, to be honest. Thoughts on Kratom? So obviously you've done many videos on Kratom already. I don't know if you have like a general summation of like your overall thoughts on it. Like it makes you hungry. It has,
which is opposite to most.
Yeah.
It makes most people not hungry, but for me, it makes me fucking starving.
Yeah. As far as its actual effects, what was your overall stance on it? Just in a,
as somebody who has a hard time sometimes getting going with their work, which is why I found amphetamines attractive. I have been diagnosed ADHD. I don't know if I necessarily stand by that diagnosis. Like, I don't know if I believe I have it, to be real with you guys. But for me, it definitely helped in the work regard. So I like to use it as a productivity enhancing agent. So it helped me with getting stuff done. It helps me socially, in the sense where I have an easier time talking. It would give me more of a flow to my conversations.
yeah.
Less choppy. I found the effects very similar to amphetamines, but less intense. Similar in like the actual effect itself, not in the way that I would reach that effect, if that makes sense.
What are your favorite strains you try? Like do you notice a huge difference between like a Mangda and like a Bali, for example?
Yeah, the interesting with Kratom is when you're like addicted to it, I've read this happening to people. A strain that works really well for you can actually stop working. And then a strain that used to not work very well, all of a sudden you try it now and it's like very effective. So my strains would switch. A few that I remember having a high affinity for would be the Mangdas.
Yeah.
Not the red so much as the white and green Mangda for sure. I definitely was more tailored towards the whites, which is probably the same reason why I liked amphetamines. They're more stimulating.
Right.
So I would go to my favorites that I can remember was the Mangdas were okay. But oddly enough, after like I really pushed Mangda, I couldn't take them anymore. They just started giving me like this weird head buzz where there was absolutely no pleasure associated with Mangda at all.
Oh, wow.
So near the end of it, no more Mangdas. And then I moved on to the Thais, like the white or green Thai. I found to be really pleasurable in the sense where it heightened my ability to escape reality. Like if I had this mountain of work to do and I just wanted to play some fucking video games, I could take a green Thai and just like zone out and play games, and it was like that work I had to do was gone. So it really helped heighten it made it easier to run away from shit. So the Kratom had like mixed effects. Initially it helped me do work, and then as I started using it more and more, it started to become more of an escape tool than a productivity tool.
The Thai strains, aren't those traditionally seen as slower, or is that?
I'm
trying to work. Honestly, it's been so long since I've looked at the effects of
Red Bali is a universal favorite. I think that was the first big strain.
I thought that was like a hybrid that's like not fast but not slow.
Red Bali?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, I'm pretty sure it's like the OG Kratom strain.
Yeah, but I thought it was like pretty broad spectrum in its effects. It's
I think
like,
so.
Okay.
Yeah. For like the reds are generally more in line with opioids. Like there's some more sedating. And but the Red Bali one, I didn't really find too sedative in nature. It gave a bit of anxiety, some relief. Honestly, the strains were really hit or miss. And then you got to think of how honest are these vendors with labeling the strains. And I've talked to some who are like, I hate to break it to you, man, but there's really only like 4 or 5 strains that exist.
Right.
And everyone's just labeling them different things just from a marketing standpoint, but you're just getting different maybe mixes of these
Exactly.
4 or 5, and that's it.
That's what, yeah, a lot of it is just mixing them. Like I know
So
some
it's
people
all
who
psychosomatic where you think that you should get an effect, so you get it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I know some people who swear by it for productivity, and then some individuals who think it's too addictive to be using, and some think it's like a poor choice for its interaction neurochemically and whatnot. But
Combining it with other drugs was interesting.
oh yeah.
I would get good effects, say phenylprazotam combined with kratom.
Oh yeah, I
Would
haven't used that in a while.
Have you tried phenylprazotam?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Did you find it effective?
Honestly, I don't even remember to give you a reference point. But it was when I was like really into experimenting with nootropics back in university, trying to figure out all of the alternatives that can enhance cognitive function to, be better on tests, exams, stuff like that.
I want to be clear though that I'm not recommending anyone combine these things. I don't even
Yeah.
know if it's safe to combine phenylprazotam with kratom, but I found the combo would be effective for getting work done.
Yeah, okay.
Same with modafinil and kratom. I tried kratom with about everything you could imagine. Even alcohol and kratom, terrible combo, just makes you really tired.
Have you ever tried fluorinated modafinil?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, it's like a hyper potent version of it.
Yeah.
It's a research chemical. It's kind of interesting.
I've tried the other what is it?
Adrafinil. It's like the pro drug to modafinil.
Yeah, I've tried that one, but there's one more. There's the one that's
Hydra.
Haven't tried that one. I have it though. Someone gave it to me. But there's one more that's like very common. It's prescribed. There's modafinil.
Oh,
and
or
then there's-
modafinil. Or
Yeah,
whatever?
that one. I didn't like that one at all.
Yeah,
That one made me really jittery.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Interesting. I'm surprised they would prescribe it.
Have you
here.
tried modafinil and all like?
Yeah, I actually have a prescription for it because I have sleep apnea induced by bodybuilding, interestingly
I have a
enough.
friend who has sleep apnea and they prescribed him modafinil.
Yeah. So if you are getting to a size where your neck can sort of be like too large to, I don't know, not collapse into itself, sort of, or part of it is like your tongue too and how you breathe when you sleep.
Yeah.
But like my actual like mechanical position of my body determines if I have sleep apnea or not. Like if I fell asleep sitting here, I would breathe normally.
Yeah.
If I'm lying back, my tongue sort of like falls into my throat and I get sleep apnea. So I have to use a CPAP machine, but I'm also prescribed modafinil.
Do you take it?
Not as much as I used to, no.
So you take it what, like a few times a week?
Like modafinil hypothetically would be for somebody. It's kind of interesting how they'll prescribe it even if you have a CPAP, because a CPAP essentially attenuates all of your problems to a point where you're breathing like a normal person because it's literally shoving oxygen into your body. So then you don't really need the modafinil, but they'll still prescribe you a full 200 milligrams a day if you want it, which, anyway.
So you don't take it ever? Or you
Not
take it
almost.
sometimes?
Sometimes for me, only because I find it less stimulating than an amphetamine analog or amphetamine.
For sure.
Even like basic caffeine and stimulants in a pre-workout context, I find modafinil smoother, but is very potent at keeping you awake. Like some people get the very like mood elevation from it. Some people get very productive. For me, I literally just get awake. So that's what I use it for, is when I'm trying to be awake, but without having any kind of adrenergic, like racy signaling.
You don't even get a little, like I would get like the tiniest euphoric boost. Not anywhere close to amphetamine, but I would feel like a little uplifted, but it's very slight.
Yeah.
You get nothing?
If I could quantify it, I would definitely say they're slight.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely nowhere close to.
No, it's not like amphetamine. But is it?
A lot of people see it as like the limitless drug, and
They haven't tried amphetamine.
it's been hyped up a lot, and it's definitely not a justified hyping up in my opinion.
No, it's not like that. But it's also dose dependent. Maybe you needed a higher dose.
I've tried
then you get more
upwards.
side effects.
I've tried upwards of like 500 milligrams.
Holy fuck.
Which is way too much. But that's like some days where I was so sleep deprived and I needed it, and I did really dumb shit when I was younger. Like I take phenibut and I take too much, so I'd end up having to use modafinil to counter
How
it.
much is too much?
Like 2 to 3 grams.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I tried 1.8 or 2 once, and I actually experienced like overdose symptoms.
I know a guy who totaled his car while driving because he fell asleep on phenibut.
Phenibut, is it still really popular? I did a video, I've got one, Phenibut versus Xanax.
It's, justifiably the FDA cracked down on it because it's not DSHEA compliant, which is like how you deem if a dietary supplement is actually just a synthetic chemical made in a lab versus derived from nature. And it's obviously a synthetic chemical in a lab, and it's actually a prescription drug in a lot of countries, or maybe Russia
Well,
or
it's similar
something.
to GHB in its mechanism of action.
Yeah. So this shit is actually very potent.
It's
and
like GHB light.
yeah, and it should not be a supplement necessarily.
We're turning people onto it, by the way, by saying that like GHB light, it's legal.
Yeah. So the FDA cracked down, so not very many like normal supplement companies don't sell it anymore. It used to actually be in like normal, like straight edge company sleep aids, which is so irresponsible, telling you to take a sleep aid with phenibut every day. Brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe like once or twice a week max, but
the
not
withdrawals are brutal.
horrible. Yeah.
Like I had a guy that I did videos with, and he didn't tell me when we did the videos that he was addicted to phenibut. And then after, he was having these really nasty effects. Like we did like compound videos. Like he tries this, and then he was like, "Well, I might be having some real negative effects because I'm 4 days off my phenibut, and I was taking it multiple times a day." And I'm like, "Seriously, dude, you should have told me that."
Yeah.
Like he was so depressed.
Yeah, it's very much more volatile compound than people realize because they think you can buy it off the internet.
It's the
or
legal status, man.
Yeah.
As soon as you make something legally available,
Yeah.
people instantly, they have this weird thing that goes on with like, it's legal, so it's safe.
Yeah.
Versus there's so many illegal drugs that are safer than prescription drugs. The whole world is twisted backwards.
One thing, there's a very relevant tangent about supplement industry where they will often find the most obscure stimulant that was like abandoned in a pharmaceutical pipeline and resurrect it as like a Frankenstein compound simply because it's not banned, even if it's far inferior to a pharmaceutical agent, simply because it's not banned and it's like still legal, right?
Yeah.
So you can get an effect even if it's super dirty, and then people automatically would rather prefer that over an amphetamine analog that is like traditionally used simply because it's available, you know, in this supplement, so it's probably fine.
Wow.
When oftentimes they're like far inferior to something that's traditionally seen as like sketchy because it's a pharmaceutical. So that's something I see all the time. But the phenibut,
like what? What's an example of one?
Okay, there's this one compound called what was it? There was one compound called 1,3-DMAA, 1,3-dimethylamine, I believe, and that is like a very hyper aggressive stimulant that hits way harder than, for me, it hits harder than Adderall. It feels like you want to like run through a wall when you use it. And
do you sweat? Like
I don't even think.
Like, does your heart beat really fast?
Yeah, it makes you feel like it's like the most hyper aggressive version of a stimulant that is like leveraged towards just hardcore adrenaline. So there's like, you know, dextro rotation of like amphetamine, which is like sort of like, it's kind of racy a little bit, but it's more smooth. And then like think about the total adrenaline ridden side of that would be this DMAA stuff. It makes you want to literally, you're sitting there taking your pre-workout and it's like, I want to run through that wall. Like you get so aggressive on the weights.
So Derek's just staring at a wall, imagining himself busting through like the Hulk. Is that it?
Yeah, like you literally feel like it makes working out so much more enjoyable because you're so aggressive on the weights and you're like euphoria's through the roof.
Wow.
But it's so acutely like centered that when you come off, you crash super hard and it's your tolerance builds up extremely quick. And that's just one example of like a resurrected compound that isn't necessarily superior to a like time and time again studied like amphetamine, but was like heavily abused in pre-workouts to the point where, you know, people would be going to the hospital with like, you know, arrhythmias or like, you know, a crazy heart rate or whatever.
So but on that whole train, is there analog or amphetamine analogs that are still in pre-workouts?
Depends how illegal the company wants to be, because some of them are.
Do you have any in yours?
No. We have PEA analogs that are still straight edge, but are very like smooth and not racy.
Okay.
But there's no like straight up like this is like a actual amphetamine purely necessarily.
I see.
So like I know there's a lot of overlap with that compound class, but it's like in general the stuff we use is more like straight edge stuff that we don't think is going to get banned, basically. So, but there are companies that are smaller and more obscure that are willing to take risks because they are much less likely to receive oversight and get targeted. So they'll put in like a mega dose of like DMA, for example, and just like make you like, you think it's better because you've never had this feeling before. The first time you have an amphetamine, it's like, holy fucking shit. Yeah. So this stuff is like really, really, you know, especially the young teens and like the young guys who like really like stimulants.
Have you tried any of the stimulant class of drugs beyond amphetamines, like MDMA?
No, actually. MDMA, no. Yeah.
Why not?
I don't know. I guess I always classified it as a party drug, probably. Yeah.
It can be, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So for me, like, it's definitely, I don't know. Like, you would think I'd have researched that more thoroughly, because it's not like I don't already look at receptor interaction, how to optimize things, or how to, do, I don't know, just, you would think I'd have looked at it more thoroughly, but I haven't. Like MDMA, I have no fucking clue.
No clue?
Yeah.
Jeez, that would be one to look into.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, I'm not advising anybody does or doesn't do MDMA, but there's something to be said about feeling that level of love and acceptance for yourself, even if it's just once in your life. Like, you reach this point where you feel like everything how it is right now, and psychedelics can do this too, but MDMA does it efficiently and effectively, like in a congruent way. Like, you can almost map it. Like, every time you take MDMA, you're going to feel this level of just absolute joy and love just how you are. And you can come out of that with something called an afterglow, where you feel great. It's a cool drug.
Doesn't it kill your dick in terms of trying to have sex on it?
Sometimes, or it makes sex phenomenal.
That's the thing. I've heard it's kind of like paradoxical in that it enhances sex, but also makes it way harder to keep an erection.
If you're with someone you trust, you're good. It makes it harder to have one night stands, for sure.
Right.
Some guys, yeah, but if you're with someone that, like, is willing to take the time, to get you to get you hard, basically, then it's good.
Okay, good to know.
That's an interesting one, though. If you do that with someone you care about, be prepared to be sharing a lot. It's almost like a truth serum. Like, you just sit there and you share and share and share, almost to the point where you want to be careful with it, because you can regret how much you've spoken the next day.
Yeah.
But you talk about amphetamines, and I'm like, MDMA is obviously a mixture of amphetamine and psychedelic.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised. I thought you would have tried that one.
No, yeah, you'd think.
Yeah.
I didn't even consider the fact that a lot of those are like a hybrid of the two, though, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. You get a pretty good energy boost on MDMA. It feels great to walk. I used to be addicted to MDMA. That's one of my past addictions. And I would take it with some friends, and we would just walk. Like, you want to talk about burning some fucking calories? Like, shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the microdose LSD, and then perhaps that would be definitely first things to look into for me.
Those are pretty, what's the word I'm looking for?
Newbie 101.
Yeah. Those are like newbie drugs.
Yeah.
It's a pretty novice way to, like, jump into it. Like, you're not really committed to anything too severe.
Yeah.
Obviously research the MDMA, because there are side effects.
Yeah.
And you can have a come down, which may not be worth it from a business standpoint, because you don't want to be feeling like shit for a week. So if you are good, maybe usually it's a couple days, but it depends.
Wow.
So if you are going to do it, be really careful with the dose. Okay. And just don't redose. People make the mistake of redosing, and usually it's because you feel so good in that state, and it's very short acting, so you want to keep it going. So you'll take, like, a common redose would be half of your first dose.
Right.
So if you did 150, you'd redose at like 75. But usually when you redose, that heightens your chance of having a debilitating come down. So if you can be like, steadfast, take it once, then you're pretty much good. Drink water.
Good to know.
Research that.
Watch some of your videos.
Watch some of my videos. Do a candy flip. Take MDMA and acid at the same time.
Okay. Man, some of these questions are fucking dumb. I'm trying to scroll through some of the ridiculousness. Like, some people are asking me straight up questions about steroids, and it's like totally irrelevant to this podcast.
Of course they are.
No questions, but what a killer combo for a podcast. Thanks, bro.
Who would have thought we had so much in common?
Yeah.
Pick up stuff. Jeez.
Let's see. We talked about microdosing already for pre-workout. This guy's asking about nitric oxide combined with psychedelics. I feel like you have no experience yet.
I've never tried nitric oxide. Yeah.
Shrooms improving physical performance. We already talked about some of that. Teenage brains and the possible damage from popular recreational drugs long term.
Yeah, I think you've talked about this. I've heard you talk about this in a video before.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of like, so mine's from the PED side. If you're like stunting certain processes, which you theoretically could. I've never talked about it from like a psychedelic context. Like, I can definitely say rec drugs in a performance. By the way, actually, I have a much better tangent than this question, which is, why have you not experimented with performance enhancing drugs up to this point? You are a natural individual still, And like we talked about the TRT briefly and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
but like, have you never been compelled to push the envelope a bit, take a little something, considering your, like, is it just health concerns or?
My other concern is my heart. I have a really strong heart. Like my resting heart rate is like 40 to 45.
Okay.
And I don't want to fuck with that. Like it feels good having a strong heart.
But then you have stimulants, and that's arguably more cardiotoxic.
Oh,
than...
for sure. I think it is more cardiotoxic. But that was when I was on the unhealthy train.
Right.
And now I'm on this health thing.
So you're like avoiding both then.
And when I was doing the amphetamines, I wasn't working out.
Yeah.
So I didn't really care. So to answer the question, when I was younger and I got into working out,
Yeah.
I think I trained from 15 to like 17, and then I got really depressed for a while. I stopped, and then from like 20 to 23 I worked out, and then I just kind of tried to maintenance for 10 years almost
Okay.
what I gained from being younger. And obviously I just slowly deteriorated more and more, and then as I got older I started gaining fat. Like there's YouTube videos of me early on with my shirt off, and you can see like I'm fat.
Mm-hmm.
So I went from being fat, and then I remember, I'm going to get to the answer, but I got to go on this little tangent first. I remember looking in the mirror on an acid trip, and I was flexing. I was like, my arms look so puny. I've got this belly. I was like, I never imagined I would look like this. I thought I was going to keep the physically fit body
Right.
forever. Like, as long as I could.
Yeah.
Like, I imagined that I would just slowly improve. Like, I thought by the time, hey, I'm 30 something, I'm going to be like, improved on when I was 20, because obviously I'm going to keep gaining muscle, right? I'm going to be getting better.
Mm-hmm.
So when I realized just how much I let myself go, I made the switch. So thank you, acid, for showing me how hideous I was. But then it's maybe recently I've gotten curious,
Yeah.
but it's been so long of not being curious because I wasn't training.
Right.
So now that I've been training recently, I have gotten a little curious, because I've seen when I tried to do the cut, I saw not only how hard it was to cut the weight, but I lost a lot of muscle when I cut.
Right.
And then I knew that if you take the steroids, you can cut and keep the muscle.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's just out of fear of side effects and not wanting to crash my T levels.
Gotcha.
So the decision not to has been mainly fear-based and ignorance-based, because I just never really researched it to know enough. Like the fear of what could happen stopped me from taking the next step to researching, because I was just like, it just sounds like too much of a risk.
Are you planning, well, I guess it's impossible to say for certain, but do you know for by chance if you're not going to have any more children ever again, or is that something to be determined still?
I don't think I'll have any more kids.
Okay. Because that would be obviously a reason that would make it easier to justify something like a testosterone replacement therapy.
It makes it harder to have kids?
Well, you can maintain fertility on it, but it can definitely reduce sperm counts, motility, morphology to a point where you need to add ancillary drugs alongside it to aid in your fertility, and it can be a bit more problematic.
Do you think it's worth taking from just a wanting to get better at business standpoint?
Off the record, even though we're on the record, yeah. Depending on how low you are, though, because again,
I'm pretty low, man.
if you were, let's just say, if I saw your blood work and you were like the top end of the reference range.
No, I mean, I'm pretty low in terms of motivation at the moment.
Right.
So
I can say, though, like even guys on TRT who are manually manipulating their hormone profile, I still see lazy fuckers. I see guys not doing their work. I see guys not getting their stuff done. It does a lot come down to like how much you want it at the end of the day, too. It just enhances your current state.
I'm not lazy. I'm going all day.
So it would definitely.
I think I'm just used up. I get with kids and stuff, and they're home all the time. I get drained.
One thing that often goes overlooked with TRT too that I should mention is the fact that your libido goes much higher. So that in itself, despite the fact that you have more energy and more oomph to do stuff, if you direct that into fucking, you can end up losing energy because you're literally getting drained so many times a day that then when you try and work, not only have you spent hours either jerking off or having sex, but in addition, like that in itself can totally offset the benefit you get from test if you're doing it like three times more
all
often.
that prolactin going on and
exactly.
shit.
Yeah. So you can imagine how lethargic and lazy you get if you were busting a nut like three times a day.
When I was taking the amphetamines all the time, I was busting many nuts a day.
Yeah.
And it totally offset the productivity the amphetamines would have given.
Yeah.
So I know what that's like.
Yeah. So that's something to definitely at least consider, is that there's a very realistic expectation that your libido will be much higher on it.
I see.
So
Yeah, I would want to take some blood work. I have been curious for a while just what my levels are because I've looked at symptoms of low T and I have some of those symptoms. And it's like,
do you wake up with morning wood still?
When I'm not cutting, I do.
Okay. Yeah.
If I'm cutting,
that's like relatively normal though to expect that your T levels will go down when you're depriving yourself.
Like even right now, I'm not super cut, but I did lower my calories. I think I'm at like 2,000 a day. I fluctuate between 1,900 to 2,000 calories a day. Like I write everything down in a book.
Okay.
So all of my meals are written down. I used to do all the macros until I realized that was bullshit. So I just write calories and protein. And some days I hit 1,800, but I might be cheating on those days and not counting something. I think realistically it's 19 to 2,000. Is that low, do you think?
Like in general, I would say, yeah, for your weight, it's not like obscenely low, but I would imagine a maintenance for you that would be considered like, I don't know.
I'm also running every day.
Wow. So yeah, that little of calories to me is kind of surprising.
Like I run anywhere from 5 to 10K a day.
How many steps do you get in total? Like during that, I don't even know what that would
I don't know. I don't
to.
count steps.
You just, okay.
I just count kilometers.
And how often do you lift?
4 or 5 times a week.
Huh. Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I think that food is a bit low, personally.
It's a bit low.
Yeah. Like I would plug. I don't know if you've heard of MyFitnessPal. I'm assuming it's like a macro counting thing. There's another app called Chronometer. That is like a superior version of the app, but it not only counts your macros and calories, but it counts your micronutrient intake. And what a lot of people don't realize is how much things like zinc, things like your B vitamins play into your.
I take all that separately, not in food always, but
yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're absorbing it all too. So plugging your diet into the app to see what your breakdown is and if you're deficient in anything, can be helpful to figure out, okay, maybe this would be, beneficial for helping my hormone production. Like there's certain things to track that sometimes go overlooked, like basic.
I see.
Like a lot of times people fall into the trap when they do the cutting model that they do diet choices that are very satiating, but are less actual like food. It's shit that's like artificial sugar, stuff that tastes good but is low calorie, but at the end of the day is lacking like fat needed for hormone production.
I eat a lot of fish. I don't eat meat. I just eat fish.
Really?
Like we're vegan beyond fish and eggs. So I think I get a lot of healthy fats because I'm eating salmon almost every day.
Bioavailable B vitamins I'd be interested of. Like you use a multivitamin to offset that or something?
Yeah, I use a multivitamin, but I could probably benefit from some actual B vitamins.
Yeah. At the end of the day, though, the calorie intake is largely what's going to be dictating to your.
So yeah, this all came about with me saying I don't get morning. So on this calorie dose, I'm not getting common morning wood. But if I up it to just 2,200, like just 200 more, the morning wood is back. It's weird how such a small bump makes such a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets to the point where guys competing in natural bodybuilding shows, they're literally walking around with like 80-year-old man test levels while they're trying to cut.
But what's weird too is at 2,200, I can't cut.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Why? It's so low.
Your body wants to maintain a healthy
level of fat
that's not starving. So that's where the kind of
it's not hard to do 2,000 a day. Like I'm not struggling with it. Food tastes amazing at this level though, because when you're deprived, everything tastes good.
Yeah.
And I actually have found a way to make my brain like being at this point. Because why would you not enjoy food tasting fucking amazing?
Yeah.
So people always complain about it being so hard to cut, and I don't know. I get why it's hard because I went down to 1,400, which was crazy.
Yeah.
But at 2,000 and food still tastes awesome. I don't know. It's kind of fun. Honestly, it's kind of fun. Don't you find that a benefit?
If there's a sweet spot between when I'm bulking, I get to a point where I hate food because it's like you're eating so much and you just like don't look forward to eating. And then if you're cutting, you're disproportionately hungry to a point where you're not even barely satiated after your meal and you're perpetually hungry. The hybrid in the middle is like you get hungry, you eat, you're satiated after until your next meal, and it's like a perfect balance.
Yeah.
But in general, most people cannot maintain their like ideal body composition at that like amount is the only. But again, it's not like to the average person, your physique is already like good enough.
Yeah.
Like, they see visible abs and filling out a shirt and they're like, what are you complaining about?
I'm not complaining.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway.
I'm complaining not about the physique as much as maybe the energy aspect.
Yeah, so definitely something to the blood work baseline. Like I'd be happy.
So the morning wood is a good.
That's a good sign for that things are functioning correctly.
But it would say that I'm not eating enough then if I'm not getting it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Personally.
But what if, here's a question. What if I ate more, but then I upped the cardio? Is it going to offset it? Is it going to make a difference?
That, to be honest, it seems like you have such quick feedback from your dick that you'd do it. And then you tell me. So I don't know, dude. I can't predict for sure, but it sounds like that might be
It'd be interesting to see.
A reasonable, experiment.
Yeah, that would be a fun experiment.
Yeah. So I would definitely try that. But the blood work for sure, dude, because it gives you a lot more real life feedback. And it's like, okay, this is factually what's going on.
I hate needles, but I'll do it. I'll suck it up.
You hate needles?
I hate needles, yeah.
Wow, that's interesting for like a drug experimenting guy.
I don't inject the drugs.
I don't know. Yeah, I guess everything is pretty much oral that you use, right?
Mm-hmm. Or sublingually, or with the ketamine video, I snorted it, and I complained like a little bitch about that. I hated it.
Yeah.
My nose, I think, is still a little plugged from that.
Have you boofed anything to skip first pass?
I tried boofing 2CB. That
really?
was intense. That was really intense.
So that's the aggressive, like hybrid stimulant euphoric compound?
People say it's a cross between MDMA and LSD. Okay. I don't think it feels anything like that, but that's what people say.
Okay, that's a good tangent because I actually had that on my list, 2CB. So what's the benefit of boofing it? Is it poor bioavailability orally? Or
no, it's just for it to come on like a motherfucker.
Oh,
like
so just get like a cute, like
right
aggressive effects.
Yeah, I went from like baseline to having psychedelic visuals where everything's starting to like get patterns emerging and everything's bulging and breathing within like 3 minutes. It was like I did it and then like I felt like I had to shit because I had to hold it in my ass.
Yeah.
And then like 3 minutes later, I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? That was too much.
Something that is is that like you just thought of that yourself, or that's like a practice that people...
I read about people doing it. What I was doing was I was looking for a way to circumvent the nausea. Like 2CB always for me would give me, it doesn't anymore, interestingly enough, but back when I did this experiment, it would cause this nausea and this like mucus buildup in my throat,
right? Where
I would always freak out during the experiment because I would feel like I couldn't, I would feel like my airways were getting clogged.
Right.
Because it was just constant, like, you know, when you get that mucus buildup? And because I was already tripping and then I'd exaggerate the feeling, I would always freak out. And I was like, I really wanted to experience the drug's effects without the mucus.
Yeah, it kind of ruins it.
It did. Yeah. It ruined it. So I thought if I boof it, then people reported it had less nausea. And I don't know about that. It still made me nauseous.
Yeah, there's some interesting things I've learned through the bodybuilding pharmacology, but I'm sure has some overlap with the psychedelics where if you don't take something orally, like not only do you potentially avoid GI distress, but you skip first pass metabolism. So
yeah, that's effective.
Sometimes the metabolites, though, for certain drugs in bodybuilding are responsible for the pharmacologic effects you're seeking. So you end up with like a disproportionate amount of parent compound relative to these metabolites that are doing something else. And it's just interesting because you can totally change what a drug does just based on shoving it up your ass versus putting it in your mouth versus injecting it versus whatever.
Most people know this about weed. When you actually eat weed, there's a metabolite cause. Do you know what causes the change? I forget what it is. Is it the liver?
Yeah.
That causes the change? And it creates a drug that you don't get when you smoke it, which has an actual more psychedelic effect.
Yeah.
And that plays into why eating weed is more psychedelic. So it's interesting. It changes the drug's effects completely sometimes. Well, not completely, but you know.
It's weird how your liver detoxing something can make it more pharmacologically active.
Have you boofed anything?
No, but anything that I've tried to skip first pass with, I've either injected or sublingually administered.
I was going to say that. Like, you seem to know a lot about this boofing concept. I was wondering, is it the same sublingually? Isn't it very similar?
Okay, with sublingual, you're getting trace amount swallowed still because like most people are
Same with snorting too.
Yeah, nasal administration obviously is a good way too if you're okay with that.
I hate it.
Yeah,
but I mean, you're swallowing some too because it goes all the way through.
Right. Yeah. So like injecting or topical administration are both effective, and then boofing as well would do that. But yeah, sublingual can be effective, but it also depends on like the preparation of the solution and like what you are, the molecular weight, I imagine, of the drug too.
I've tried a lot of drugs sublingually, like where I actually just took the crystal and would just like rub the crystal under my tongue. Yeah. And it definitely changed the effects. Yeah. Even I tried phenylprazotam that way. It made it way more effective.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of them, it's like, it definitely through the mucosal membrane, it's like way fucking different.
It's my preferred way of taking something actually, because it comes on, I find, faster and with less GI like distress.
In addition to that, if you're trying to get like a disproportionately aggressive effect, for example, in the gym, some people will sublingually administer androgens to get like even more aggression out of a steroid, because it's like the plasma concentration through sublingual administration is like, and then like crashes down and it's in and out of your system very quickly.
Wow.
Versus you orally administer and it goes through this entire metabolism process. Like you're not totally skipping the liver detoxing it or anything, but you're skipping, the first GI pass, the first pass of the liver, etc.
Yeah.
To a point where you're not getting as many metabolites. It's in and out of your system quicker. You get a disproportionate serum like spike, and you get more aggressive effects out of it. And you might want to avoid some of these metabolites if they are, inherently toxic or whatever.
Can you do that with stuff like Anavar?
Yeah.
People do? Okay.
Yeah. So like Anadrol is like one that people sublingually administer. Anavar, I would imagine you could, but I would have to look at if there's any point of doing it based on like the downstream metabolites. Like Anadrol, like most of the time the sublingual and performance enhancing drugs is to avoid detection is what a lot of people are doing. But then in addition, if you're trying to change like the pharmacology of it, you can get a disproportionate amount of like parent in the serum versus like metabolite just by skipping that, you know what I mean? And it's like a totally different drug when it's administered in that fashion at that point. Because a lot of people, they think, oh, this is what this drug does. It's like, no, that's what the metabolites of that drug do, not the actual drug.
I see.
Yeah. So I imagine it has a lot of overlap with the psychedelics too, for sure.
Yeah, in the effects range, it changes the effects.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see. What else did we have on here? That definitely. So the 2CB thing, is that?
Why are you so interested in 2CB? It's honestly not nearly anywhere near LSD.
I'm not. I just have it on my questions list, and it was a suggestion. So.
I see.
Yeah. So LSD is a superior choice for me personally, is what you're saying.
I think for most people, depending on what you're after, LSD has more of a chance to give you a beneficial effect long term.
Okay.
2CB can be seen more as like a surface level experience. Like you don't really go too deep to really explore. You can. Again, this is also subjective. I can't make a definitive statement that you don't go too deep. But in general, most people don't get as much out of the experience. They don't get as much personal growth.
Right.
That's why I would say it's more of a beginner compound, because it doesn't really force you to explore consciousness in the same way. It's more controllable.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. A lot of stuff about weed and working out.
Got no experience with that. I've never been a big weed guy.
Let's see. People asking me about gynecomastia, totally irrelevant.
That was another fear that I had
yeah.
of taking stuff, is the gyno, for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a realistic fear.
Even with just TRT?
Not in general. It's pretty, you'd have to be pretty genetically like predisposed.
You have never had any puffy
Yeah,
nipples.
then I highly doubt that would happen. Yeah, it would be very unlikely.
So it's just the other compounds that cause it more so.
Like you could definitely get it from using too much test.
Right.
It's just the amount you'd be using for TRT, it would be highly unlikely that it would be problematic in that regard, unless you were like had existing pubertal gyno that you exacerbate with TRT. And yeah. Man, a lot of questions about working out, downsides of psychedelics. Talked about that, I think, pretty elaborately.
I can ask you some questions.
Yeah, if you have some.
Yeah, I can come up with some.
Sure, think of some while I'm scrolling through, and I'll whoever comes up with a good one first. Which is better, hero dose of mushrooms or micro dose?
You can't say. It depends on what you're after.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a goal-oriented question.
It would be. What would be your goals of taking a psychedelic if you were to try one?
Productivity enhancement literally is the primary goal. I do
Even
not
from a full dose or just from a micro dose?
Well, that's the thing is like I don't even know if I'd want to do the experience of like a full dose. Like I'm thinking, how can this assist my current regimen? Which is like, how do I interplay into my current life, which would be enhancing some sort of element of being locked in and dialed in on what I'm doing, or enjoying what I'm doing more, getting distracted less, killing hunger, I guess would be a huge upside too if it could do that, because the longer I stay fasted, the more mental sharp I am.
I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better than some of the current agents that you have at your disposal, but it might just give you something new to play with.
Yeah. And if there's a day I can avoid, like for example, the more days you use stimulants in a row, obviously not necessarily good for, long term. Like it would be good to have rotation potential of things that are not stimulant backboned or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. That's in the microdose field. But for like an actual having like a real dose.
Yeah.
what would you be looking for? Really just the same thing, eh?
Nothing though. That's
Nothing. So then
like
it's
I would
not
be,
for you.
I guess yeah. Like to me, it sounds dumb, but I see like no upside personally. Like maybe I might have a different perspective on things, but it's like I'm pretty fucking happy with the way things are going. I imagine if I experience some critical shift in my progression, maybe I'll be like, oh, like I need to explore some other, or I stop getting rewarded from, what I'm doing. I don't know. Like, I think the fact that I found my lane and I'm actually passionate about my lane, it's hard to like even think about deviating in any aspect or trying to perceive it in a better way, because I'm like quite happy with how it's going.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just like from a financial standpoint or anything. I literally am like very rewarded from what I'm trying to pursue.
Yeah, makes sense. You don't want to mess with that.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem like, other than something that could enhance my desire to continue down that path like further, like maybe, but I mean like
Could be good for bonding with another person.
Okay, that would be good then. That would be something. I actually have intranasal oxytocin in my fridge that I've considered using, but I have not really looked at practically how to use it.
Where do you get that? I want some of that.
My compounding pharmacy I use.
Oh, could you get me some? I want to try that.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about it. So, but yeah, that for example, as far as like the bonding thing, is something I'm very interested in. And I haven't really. It's one of those things where I was like, it's not like I even know how to use it yet, but I'm like, this is a good idea. I'll just like keep this in the fridge here. So at some point, I'll probably do something like that. But yeah, that is actually a good tangent that you mentioned earlier. The MDMA is good for that, pending I stay hard, and then the.
Even just on an emotional level, like sexually, emotionally, MDMA it's a fantastic bonding agent.
Okay.
But people sometimes there's a dark side, obviously, to all of this. I don't want to make it sound like I'm a proponent of taking it. You want to already be in a healthy place before you try anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of somebody's relationship getting ruined taking it? And
Yeah, of course.
Like saying
what
would
I
happen?
Cheated on you.
Okay, so if you have like an underlying secret of something you did, then don't do it. But if you have nothing to hide necessarily,
or just maybe tell them.
Like you're not going to say something you don't like about them. Maybe like if you
might
really. So you'd be like, you look like shit. Like fill in the blank.
It probably won't be like related to their visage. Like,
okay. I'm just like thinking of like how much of a dick I'm gonna become when I do it.
You won't become a dick.
Okay.
You're gonna become very compassionate. You get very huggy. They call it the love drug, not the sex drug. And you generally just want to cuddle and you want to share deep insights about who you are. You want to share things that are very personal, but more so you want to learn about them. So it makes it so like you actually want to know them at a deeper level, and then they want to share with you on a deeper level, so you have this exchange going on where you kind of get to go to places that you might not be comfortable going sober. And even if you are comfortable going there sober, it's got a little interesting kind of spin to things. It's definitely something that is neat to explore as long as you don't rely on it.
Because that's like, for me, again, from the paranoid perspective, I think of the entrepreneur who fucks up their ego and becomes less focused on achieving success from psychedelic trips.
Yeah.
But then I'm also thinking now in a relationship aspect, if your relationship is exceptional already, and then you do this MDMA, is there more of
there's always a risk,
a downside relative to the plus if it's already like,
I think there's more of there's a more possibility for the plus.
Okay.
There's more chance that you're going to have a positive outcome than a negative one in a relationship sense. Obviously, you both have to do it. Like you can't just be one of you doing it.
Yeah, that would
just
be
being
bad.
This drugged out fuck.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
You just be annoying at that part.
Yeah.
I've been there. I've been the one on MDMA and just
really?
like go to bed at him, like leave me alone.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that. But yeah, that actually sounds like a realistic application, because I have looked at the oxytocin for that.
Well, what MDMA does, one of its effects, is it actually raises the amount of oxytocin in your brain. So it does that. That's largely
This is
why people
shooting
bond.
it into your fucking brain.
Yeah,
Literal.
I get that.
So I wonder if it's similar in.
It's probably better because you're getting a massive dump of serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, and oxytocin. Like, it's the combination of all those chemicals that causes that unique effect. But it's funny that you're so sold on psychedelics deviating you from your path of success, when, like, I gave you the biggest example of Mr. Steve Jobs, who had helped him with his success.
Sure.
And then you want to go more. Then there's the person who invented or discovered the DNA helix. If you want to argue his wife did it, Francis Crick. And he said that if it wasn't for LSD, like, he actually discovered it well on an acid trip.
Yeah.
So these are just the two most commonly talked about ones. If I really think about it, I could come up with more.
You had
there's a lot of instances.
At one of your videos I was watching, before this, you had like a good like testimonial conclusion. I think it was either after a podcast or perhaps your newbie introduction to psychedelics. I don't remember which, but you had like discoveries made and quotes by that person as to what it contributed to their, you know, novel finding.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was like quite a few. So I definitely can acknowledge there is.
You're looking at Connor Murphy and you're getting scared.
Yeah.
Here's a lunatic. Like the dude, he's behaving like a lunatic.
Yeah.
And even before it's not like he was the kind of person that you aspired to be, I don't think.
No. Yeah.
So you can't really look at him as an example of why you should or shouldn't do something. I'm more of the, like, it might sound like I'm trying to talk you into trying it. I'm more so just taken back by, like, you explore all these compounds, but then you got this whole class that has so many benefits that you're afraid of.
Yeah.
Because they're really, the benefits of these things, when they're done responsibly, in the right mindset, with the right intent, endless benefits.
Right.
Like, it can help you emotionally. Not you're so, like, in your lane of, you know, entrepreneurial, like, work and progress. Like, I get it. That's what you're at. So you're looking at things from that perspective, but mainly you're coming at it from a fear base, because all of your concerns are about, like, how is this going to hurt me?
Yeah.
Instead of, like, and that's probably a sign why you shouldn't do it, because then you're going to do the substance if you were to do it, and then you'd come at it from that fear thought. And if you come into it from fear, you're likely to experience fear. So you want to have the intent of, how is this going to help me?
Right. Yeah, I guess the going into it with the right headspace seems like critical.
It is critical.
Not
Absolutely.
fucking it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to just share, like, the right information with you.
Yeah. Have I ever used psychedelics, Derek? No, I have not.
But I don't know. I would honestly, though, be surprised if you never do. Just based off your history of, like, exploring, it seems like something at one point down the line you're probably going to explore.
Yeah.
From, like, an outsider looking in, it seems like that. It might just be a matter of, like, when.
Can a pregnant woman microdosing psychedelics make their child smarter? That would be
absolutely.
Really?
No.
I was like, what the fuck? You never know, dude. That's funny. Let's see. Can you get performance enhancing effects? Yeah, obviously we talked about that. Similarities between the processes of making NN-DMT and home brewing gear. Oh, actually, that's impossible for either of us to answer. He's talking about home brewing steroids compared to making DMT.
DMT is pretty easy to extract. There's a lot of plants that it's in.
Oh,
but I don't know about the gear at all. Can you make gear?
You can pretty easily. Honestly, I don't even know how, but there's a lot of underground labs that have, emerged over. Yeah, dude. Like so like, I assume a lot of the psychedelics that are, well, I don't know, like, presumably there's somebody who's acting as a chemist and, like, making the shit that is bought on the underground scene for psychedelics too.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it's kind of the same thing with anabolics. You have some guy who's like, you know what, I'm going to make it. I'm going to provide it to people in the masses, or at least as mass as I can scale my operation.
Right.
So, yeah, they just call them, like, underground labs, and they're actually, like, branded. Whereas with psychedelics,
Gotcha.
I'm assuming they come in, like, they don't come with, like, a branded, like, label on them and shit. Like, this is brand.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, that's what gear is. They'll have, like, it'll be, like, this brand for every compound, and they'll have, like, their own logo and their own, like, actual marketing behind it, even though it's illegal as fuck, which is kind of interesting.
That's weird, man.
Yeah, when you actually think about it, it's kind of weird that they have, like, branding. It's like, what are you doing?
For something that's illegal?
Yeah,
I guess that just goes to show that it's not really that over, like, regulated.
No, in Canada, the regulation on steroids is extremely low.
Isn't it legal to possess them?
Yeah. So, like, if you get caught as a guy who's, like, the mastermind of an underground lab, worst case scenario, you get, like, a very minimal sentence, or you don't even go to jail at all, which is interesting. So, whereas in the States, it's much harsher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of things are harsher in the States in that regard.
Yeah. Ketamine, just for horses, question mark?
I just tried it for the first time. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it was weird.
Couldn't have said. Can psychedelics cause you to be less motivated? I think we kind of already talked about that.
Yeah. It can swing either way, really. Either way.
Let's see. We can probably just edit out me looking for shit if we need to. This guy's like, does he think you are stupid or unknowledgeable in any way? And if so, why? Ask for good reasoning.
I'm kind of taken back right now with the quality of these questions. When you said you had viewer questions, I was expecting you to like be scrolling through some real winners here.
Yeah.
Like, what's up with this?
No, I'm a lot of the questions that are reasonable are stuff that they assume I know about your area of expertise and they assume you know about mine, which is makes for questions that are unusable. And then just basic shit like, what do you think about Connor? What do you think about this? What do you think about my gyno? It's like, bro, not relevant.
We should touch back on the Connor situation before we wrap it up, though.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I feel like we didn't completely we didn't really have any closure on that. We just skipped to something else.
Yeah, his video coming up for tomorrow. Let me see what he has scheduled. He has another big reveal thing. What is it? Connor Murphy. You looking at your watch keeps making me think we need to wrap up.
No, I'm looking. I've got a timer on for the camera, so I'm seeing how much time is left on the recording.
So his video set for tomorrow at 7 a.m. is Connor Murphy's final words, heroin, R.I.P.
Huh.
Which, to be honest, seeing as we saw R.I.P. Connor Murphy today and he's talking about how to get his Dogecoin, like, I can't imagine he took heroin or he's going to be dead.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, but this is, I don't know, man. Like, I can't, he's done this so many times, it's impossible to be like, oh, like, something's actually going to happen now. So I don't know if he's, like, I don't even know what kind of conclusive opinions I have to even wrap up on him other than, like, it seems like no matter who helps him, he's not really open to help as much as he may seem to put on. Because when he does get the interventions, there was actually a live one with that Kenny KO guy where he was like, I'm very worried about you. Like, promise me you won't do this shit. Fly out to Vegas and I'll take care of you and make sure you don't take this stuff. And he's like, okay, I will do that. And then doesn't do it, obviously.
Yeah. And I don't even know what to say about it because I'm blanking up again when I think about it.
Yeah.
It's like on one hand, I don't want to. I have a hard time with the situation because there's some truth to his experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I can. I get the thing where you mentioned how he's like trying to explain to people, trying to get them see it the way he's seeing it, and to him it makes sense. And it's like frustrating that people aren't seeing it from his perspective necessarily. But
when you're in that state, man, you think everyone besides you is like asleep.
Yeah,
like
that's exactly how he behaves.
Is it?
Yeah.
Like you, in a sense, he probably doesn't have any shame in how crazy he's being.
Exactly.
Because he's so, and everybody else is like,
yeah.
So to him, it's all one big game.
Yeah, like even when you make a rebuttal video to him, like some of my responses, he's just like you can see it, he's like brushing off the opinion, like, why, like, you're so close-minded, like, what the fuck, you know? Like, you clearly like don't understand the higher purpose. Like, fuck off, Derek. You know? Say you're in on it, you're gonna look like an idiot. Like, so he literally DMs me in private. It's like,
what did he say in the messages to you?
He said, I probably shouldn't play them, I guess, because they're private. But basically, in general, he was like saying, he was doing his weird like Matthew McConaughey voice. And
Can you recreate it for me? Like, you don't have to.
Like, say you're in on it, you're gonna look like a fucking idiot. And then he was like, what does he say?
In on what? In on what?
I don't know. Like his like plan or whatever, or like whatever he's doing. Like he just says you're in on it, as in like, you know.
In on the game of reality,
I guess, or like every time somebody tries to talk about his psychedelic experience in a negative way, like that Kenny KO guy where he's talking about Connor, like, are you actually okay? He I don't know if he actually believes it, but he starts laughing and he says, like, you're such a good actor, Kenny. Like, you can stop now. Like, it's okay. Like, people know, like, this is all like, we know you're acting.
So that's exactly what he's doing. He's so awake. He's seeing that everybody is just God in drag. Ram Dass says this. Ram Dass says when you reach a point in your spiritual journey where you start viewing everybody as God in drag. And when someone does something that really irks you and gets you angry, it's really easy to just laugh at it because they are behaving as a teacher for you because they're just God too, and they're here to teach you a lesson. It almost sounds like he's translating these very powerful teachings in a negative context almost. where he's kind of being abrasive. Like he's being really...
It's condescending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you can view what it seems he's viewing. It seems he's like, Derek, you're in on it. Just admit that you're in on the joke. You're pretending to be a singular I when really you know that you're God. I know you know, Derek, that you're God.
Yeah.
Just admit it. But it's condescending because on some level he must know that when you're playing the game of reality, part of the rules of the game is you don't know you're playing.
Yeah.
Like if you knew you were playing, then you wouldn't be fucking playing.
Yeah.
Like that's what you
like
get.
He's very cognizant that we aren't awake, and he's like, the whole point of it is he's trying to make it seem like he's trying to enlighten people and teach them how to do what he's done
by calling them out and saying that they're in on the game.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just very contradictory, because then he says again, like, to start, he's trying to convince people how to become enlightened, like what they should do to become like him. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, everyone's in on it and they're just pretending that they're not.
People should be like him, right?
Yeah, like, I don't know, dude. It's hard to have more insight personally when like it's just so off the fucking wall, and I don't really know what everything he does essentially comes down to it sounds like he has some grand ending that is going to be, I don't know, like dying and returning from the dead or something. And then in reality, he's talking about giving away Dogecoin. It's like, how do I like relate this in any practical aspect?
The other aspect of people who are actually in that like Satori state is they don't view people that are asleep as being less than them. In fact, the real way to view that from a spiritual standpoint is they're playing the biggest, most terrifying game of all, because they're so far down on that tight rope that says like, if I just slip up, I'm going to like fall and I'm going to be dead and I'm gone forever. Like they so much so believe in the game they're playing that you have to respect them for being that far out on the tightrope.
Right.
And that's what they would say. So if someone's asleep, you're not like, you're less than me because you're asleep. It's more so a total reversal of that. And you're like, wow, look at that guy go. He really believes it. Like, that is so fucking cool.
Like, I'd almost think you'd be sympathetic to people not being enlightened.
No, you're not following necessarily. It's not about being sympathetic. It's about being in awe with them.
Yeah.
It's like looking up to them almost, because they are actually playing. And when you're that enlightened and you realize the whole point of this is to play, it's like in being enlightened, you're actually less because you are, you're choosing not to play. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So if Connor really was enlightened, he would be like, shit, how do I get unenlightened?
Right.
Because when you get there, it's the kind of thing people say when you reach Satori, a common quote is, you reach Satori, you realize that you do not want Satori. What that means is when you reach the state of enlightenment, you realize that the point to life is to not be there. So you quickly want to forget it, and you want to get back to just playing the game of separateness.
Because you can't immerse yourself in the experience of the game like you could prior when you were unaware that it was like the simulation type thing.
Yeah, exactly. You follow what I'm saying.
Okay.
So because you see that it's a game and you're here to play.
Okay.
So if you're awake, how can you play? You can't.
Right.
You can't play. So he's trapped in this like weird corridor where he's awake and he's infused his ego with it, and he thinks that the goal is for everybody to be enlightened like him. But literally what that looks like from a Satori standpoint is death. For everybody to be awake, it means everyone has to die.
Okay.
And I don't think he realizes that.
No,
like the only way to actually be awake from that view, this is just one perspective. I'm not saying this is truth, this is gospel, but they say to really be one, you have to lose your individual consciousness, and you only do that through death. So I don't think he realizes what he's saying.
It's gonna be interesting, all his response videos to all of these clips that we come out with.
He's gonna know how to respond to what I just said.
No, he won't, but he will. He will, dude. You just wait. He'll literally make a video about both of us and do like a crazy ramble with like 14 overlays of different shit.
Do you think Greg's gonna have some stuff to respond to?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Greg.
What the fuck would Greg respond to?
Greg was one of the first ones to post about his first like suicide thing, where he was like claiming he was gonna kill himself.
Jesus.
And Greg basically just talked about mental health and stuff like that.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it's been
Are you friends with Greg?
Yeah.
Like you guys chat?
Yeah.
That's cool. Greg's an interesting dude.
Yeah, his hardest fucking working guy ever. Like, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, his work ethic is what inspired me to get up to 2 videos a day. Like, I would have never done it.
Oh, wow.
You're
inspiring me right now.
Yeah, so he has like a bleed through effect. So he set the new standard for posting frequency and just like how hard you can actually go, like harder than last time. Blah, blah, blah.
It sounds like such an old man thing to say.
Yeah.
Harder than last time.
Yeah.
Like, it's like my grandpa would say that to me.
So like when I got to 1 a day, I literally thought like this is the pinnacle of posting, and like I've heard of burnout, hardcore burnout from 1 a day. Now granted that's vlogging, so obviously
that's when you're editing your own stuff. You can't really burn out when you're not editing your stuff. How much work is it to make a video? I don't know.
If you're vlogging, it's pretty intensive, I think.
Okay.
Because you're trying to make each day exciting for the vlog versus for information, it's a bit easier to not burn out.
I totally get that.
So anyway, I got up to 1 a day and I just saw him and his posting schedule. I was like, this guy is pumping out a video every fucking 12 hours. And I was like, if I want this growth and I want to realize like the benefits he's getting, I need to get up to his level. And I'm like, that's, what I strive to do at the end of 2020 and finally got there. And now it definitely reflects like proportionally. You think, I'm going to post more, people are going to hate it. How much of my face can you stand? It's a fucking lot. People can stand a lot of your face.
When they like you.
Yeah, but that's what you think. Your perspective, even before you start YouTube, is I'm not likable. I don't have the information. Like no one's gonna, listen to me. But no, like if you are, especially in your niche, like you're already the authority in the space. So just imagine.
Which is crazy because I personally don't think I know very much. Like honestly, if you were to ask me, no bullshit, I really don't. I know a little bit.
You have a lot of anecdotal findings through shit, and you also have some like a good foundation of knowledge of the pharmacology and the intertwinement of the two.
Very basic foundation, but some
plus
knowledge.
The ability to communicate it in a way that's entertaining and I don't know, just obviously very, very resonates with people. It's like
relatable.
Yeah, it's clearly like put you above everyone else. So I just lean into it, dude, because I don't know when the algorithm's going to change, because it definitely did not used to be like this, where you could just post as fucking much as you want, and it would just, nothing like gets killed by you posting more. Like you would think maybe it might punish you for being like, you're spamming.
I've actually thought that.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I was like, Greg's videos, they're going to stop getting as many views because he's spamming. That's like,
but they'll stop getting views when he stops being interesting.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like if you post every day and your stuff isn't interesting.
Oh, for sure.
But if you're posting interesting things every day, then
yeah. Like for me, I definitely see videos not do well if they're just not interesting. But if they're interesting, they still get the same views they would get. Well, they probably get more views than they would have got otherwise, because have all this other algorithm prop up from all the other stuff going on. So it all pushes into each other like very, very well, to a point that a video, even that's at 100K like a week ago, ends up being at 200K a week later, even if it's normally would have died otherwise.
That's pretty cool, man. Do your videos just like hit 300 and stop? Like, do you find there's like a limit to the views?
It's interesting how hard they'll push up to 200 to 300, then kind of just like stagnate.
Yeah.
But then oftentimes, if I'm doing well, random videos will just pick up again.
Yeah,
and sometimes they'll stay at no progress for like a month, and then just like randomly boost. Like
sometimes it's longer than a month. I've seen that.
I had a video from 2017 which only had 5,000 views, which was like it was like a skit I did, and it was so unrelated to the kind of stuff I do now, and it was stuck at 5,000 views for like ever. And now all of a sudden the algorithm decided to just push it to people who watch my stuff, and now it's at like, I don't know, 200 or something.
Wow.
But it's just like, yeah, even stuff that at the time didn't perform well because it wasn't good enough ends up being good enough just by your sheer frequency, which is kind of nuts. Yeah. So I don't know. It's definitely, this is almost like a game too. Like the whole YouTube thing seems like a very like a simulation game kind of focused thing, because it's
you
like
can see everything as a game.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's like the views equates to this subscriber count, which equates to this much output of revenue.
Just like
with
people
this.
saw pickup as a game, right? That wasn't always thought of as a game.
Yeah,
they literally called it the game in that book.
True.
So it's interesting. You can turn everything into a game.